AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. Hey, welcome everybody to our Saturday series on answering gun questions that people ask. Is that the way to say it? And we've got our friends Tony jumping in from New Jersey. Thanks for joining. I think he's breaking up, but he said, hey, I think. And then we got Clover jumping in from Texas. Thanks for joining.
Hey, appreciate the invite.
So we've got every week we go live. Let's see. Oh, I got you. Every week we go live and answer questions that have come in to askgunquestions.com. Additionally, any questions that come in while we're live, we stream the show and have an audience here. So anybody that might ask questions while we're live, we try to answer those as well, or at least address them. However, today, it is episode 22 or 22nd in the series. So I thought we'd focus on the 22 long rifle. I'm a big fan of the ammo, of a bunch of the guns. I know Clover's a big fan. Tony, I don't know if we've mentioned it or not before, what your opinions are on it, but unless you guys would rather dig into some of these that have come in over the last week that were not necessarily on 22, but none of them are really urgent. I'm thinking let's drop those to a future show, chat about 22, and then, of course, you guys, well, Clover got back from travel, and Tony would have gotten back from travel, and so we can do like an after action on some of the happening adventures.
Yeah,
I guess that wasn't a question, but go ahead. Oh, I'm
firearms, percussion, less cost, a lot of fun. Hello? Am I not coming through?
I don't know. I have bad internet, so I'm really bad at judging if it's my end or somebody else's end. So Clover can be the judge.
Yeah, I mean, when you come through, you're fine, but that's typical, like remote stuff.
All right, yeah, because I'm on the way home, so I'll be there in the next, 20 minutes. So if it's too much, I'll bang out and come back.
No, just start talking, because once you start talking, the signal's clear. I think it's just the lag and us not want to interrupt each other. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, I really enjoy 22s. As a kid, loved firing my uncle's guns because that's what he allowed me to shoot. All of us kids to do it because ammo was really, really, really cheap. 22 ammo is cheap in the 70s, definitely. And it's inexpensive today. And again, it's all the good about shooting a firearm without any of the bad. No recoil, no concussion, and it doesn't kill your wallet. So it's a lot of fun.
That's some interesting points to start off with then. So appreciate the insight. And then Clover, do you want to try to do a summary of your relationship with 22?
Well, I can. I mean, it's like Tony, it's long standing and from a lot of different angles, from introduction to firearms to youth shooting sports to whatever. I would add to the lot of fun and being cost effective. I would also add and argue that 22 long rifle, for example, is the most given parameters. I mean, obviously, there are parameters out there. The most accurate cartridge in the world. Has been for a very long time, still is today. Many reasons it was used for gallery guns and things like that of the past. Cost obviously a factor in noise, and there's a lot of other factors that go in, but inherent accuracy of the cartridge. It's when you talk about a rimfire cartridge, you talk about the way that 22, if you know anything about ammunition, how the projectile is seated into the cartridge. When you're dealing with a rimmed case, rim thickness has an effect on the headspace, which has an effect on the act. We can get really, really nerdy with 22 long rifle if you want to, but I would argue one of, if not the most accurate cartridge within normal parameters in the world, which is also a plus. I mean, if you're going to get out there and have fun, you want to actually hit those cans or hit that steel or hit that target or whatever it might be.
Right on. So sorry, step away for a second. We got questions coming in. I'm gonna say let's just go for 22 show completely. I tried to hand pick some 22 questions out of the list from past questions. There's like 700 questions in there. There's really not that many for 22 specifically, and the couple that were in there we actually addressed in earlier shows, just kind of randomly. It's kind of weird,
Right.
but like I say, I just stepped away. So Clover, you just got done talking about your kind of, I'm gonna say, relationship, because we all have been aware of 22 our whole lives. Pretty much everybody starts on it, and then now I'm just quickly, I guess, I'd started on a 22 also. I think, I don't know if you guys mentioned it specifically, but for a while there, I hated 22, right? You get old enough and you think, oh, that's a baby caliber. I don't want that. I'm not, plinking, or I'm not whatever. I want a real caliber. And then, oh, well, I mean, it kind of depends on everybody's travel,
I can see it. I can see it, but you got to realize I got more into the competition world, which got into, this thing of like, maybe you're like, oh man, I can handle a car and drive really fast. That's great. Now let's get you in a pack with, to quote a line from Days of Thunder, I think, right? It's like, let's get you in a pack with a bunch of other people and see how you do, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, I get, but I always push myself, like the yellow twine that you use for baling hay. Being in a rural area, we got access to tons and tons of that. Big balls of it will fall off the back of trucks around here and all kinds of stuff. I would literally string that between tree trunks and at 50 yards or so shoot twine with my Marlin Model 60. So I was always pushing the envelope. And always had that, I realized the inherent accuracy, and I realized a lot of those things even before I got into coaching and instructing in the competition world. And then once you get into that, especially, it just renews your, I don't know, what your spirit or whatever with it. So I never was. Yes, I do love the larger calibers. 4570 is one of my favorite, for example, and things like that. But I never fell out of love, so to speak, with the 22 long rifle. I just always found other ways to push that envelope.
I could totally see that. And now they mentioned that, like for me, it was the 22 is, like I said, the introduction. That's what kids shoot. You shoot BB guns. You shoot 22 with the awareness that you're moving on to all the rest of the stuff that's out there. So whenever, and then I think the big difference, as you were describing that too, is when I was a kid, I was really into guns and stuff, and we went shooting quite a bit, but on the weekends at a range. So it was gather up a bunch of stuff and do whatever. I can't reload 22. I could reload 38 over and over and over again. So for me, when I was just going plinking, if I had to grab a bunch of stuff, I'm shooting 38 because now I've got that extra level of something going on where, I'm not just going to the store and buying 22. To me, buying 22 at the store was like buying BBs. I knew I was buying something that just went out the gun and I wasn't collecting any of it and putting it back together, which I could do with the 38s, So, and that's pretty much what I would shoot, as I would consider like my plinking caliber, right? 38s back in the day out of revolvers and stuff. But no, that makes a good point. If you could just go out the backyard, or if you were out actually getting rid of mice or rats or something in a situation where you needed to, you have to use 22. You're not going to spend 9mm. Well, there was no 9mm back in the day, but you're not going to shoot 38 money or center fire money on getting rid of vermin and stuff. And in those cases, like, it would be a whole different situation. So for me, I kind of left it for a bit. And I guess I was just going to say, I came back to it once I started collecting. Once I got past, I've never been, people like go, oh, you're fascinated with guns? Like, no, I just like them. Like I like knives, or like I like my computers. Like, they're a super interesting tool. And, you can get a knife that's for the kitchen. You can get a knife that's for doing something outside, like a tool or something. And those knives are different. They're made different. And just once you get into collecting and, once you get into the laws, some of these guns that exist that the law, either the law went around or the law never touched them, and they're just interesting specimens, or maybe something like that semi-automatic revolver that's just a weird specimen in between places. When you get into that kind of collecting, the 22 comes right back into, what do you call, like the main stage, the forefront, because it was the first cartridge. So right away, there's some history there, and it's such a little cartridge that a lot of things are able to be done with 22 that can't be done on some of the others. So some of those unique and interesting guns, when you get into like the poker player guns and stuff. A lot of those are just in little 22s. And it wasn't until the ban on low caliber, easy to produce small guns in 1968 that people started to escalate calibers into larger and larger calibers because the federal law demanded it. But back in the day, 22s and rim fires of different sizes were plenty because they were a deterrent, right? You'd put them on the table and it would show the other person that you meant business, like baring your teeth. You didn't have to bite so much as bared your teeth. I don't know if it was a different world or what, but you know, that when you get into those kind of guns and that kind of history, 22 is right there all the time.
Yep.
All right. Well, so then I don't know. Does anybody else want to take it anywhere right off the bat before we start hitting a couple of questions? And feel free if you're listening live, drop some questions in here.
I say let's dive in.
Let's see. So is the first one Smeggy's just asking what's the farthest you can shoot a 22 accurately?
Looks like.
They say a mile back in the hunter safety days, right? Like be careful where you're shooting that thing. You can hit a mile.
Accurately, though, is going to be the key to that. Like, ooh, that'd be tough.
Well, I used to know people. Go ahead.
It depends on a lot of things. Yeah, that mile it's deadly out to a mile. At least that's what the side of the box used to say. It depends on the ammo. It depends on the rifle. It depends on the person behind you. You know, your beat up, break barrel, whatever. H&R might have been accurate out to one level, but like my CZ Ultra is really, really, really accurate, and I've been shooting it out to 200, and it's like it just depends on everything. But it's a very accurate cartridge, like Clover said, and really it's only affected by the wind because it's so small. Usually they're between 30 and 40 grains. Stuff you'll use for targets from like Lee and things like that. So it's a lightweight round, and it's not going that fast. So pretty much it's just the wind that will affect it and break through the sound barrier, but that's something totally different.
Yeah, but something to keep in mind is that not moving that fast actually helps with wind. When you talk about something like a 17 HMR or even a 22 Magnum, wind tends to affect those a little bit more drastically than a 22 long rifle. It's sort of the same principle when you start talking about 45 ACP, right? Versus some of the other rounds, like let's say 9mm, because that's an easy comparison to make. You know, it's slower moving, and then obviously the 22 projectile most of the time is going to be heavier than that 17 projectile too. So it's heavier, it's slower, tends to buck that wind a little more. To answer Smeggy's question directly, from my experience, I've seen some competitions and some things like that where 300 yards is given Tony's deal of at least steady wind conditions, right? If you've got multi-changing winds and stuff like that, it gets crazy. But I've seen competitions where you could shoot 300 yards on like a 1 foot square piece of steel or something of that nature. Pretty well. What you get into with trying to go out, past maybe 150 or so, certainly 200, is you've got about a 3 foot holdover at 200, and you got like an 8 foot or something at 300. So, if you're running optics, if you're just trying to gauge it on irons, optics, first of all, is having that type of adjustment to start with. With irons, I mean, you get into a situation to where you're almost shooting blind. You're just kind of shooting by feel type scenario. And then the other thing I would say when you're shooting any kind of distance with 22 is every little thing. This is the level of difficulty that a lot of people don't realize is that yes, I mean we start on it, we see it as the baby caliber, we see it as rudimentary and virtually harmless, and in every way it's just so easy and so fun. But the level of difficulty when you want to achieve precision is actually pretty high, because little movements like your pulse, right, make like a huge difference. I mean, just your pulse and holding the rifle and how you're holding that rifle. And you'll notice that a lot of competitive shooters, they contort and twist their arms in weird ways when they're shooting offhand and a lot of this other stuff. And there's a reason for that. And not only is it steadiness, but it's also to lay that rifle stock in a manner um, that mitigates, where your pulse is at, right? You're not laying on a huge vein or a huge artery or whatever the case may be. Breathing comes into play. There's just so many things, and that's amplified many, many times fold as you start pushing out the distance. The most common that I see is about 110 meters. Now, you tell me how many yards that is because I'm not going to do the math, but the most common, I would say, longer distance that I see primarily was 50 foot and 25 yards. That's what I've seen in competition with precision. But we shot a lot of silhouette matches and that pushed out as far as 110 meters, and dead on, super accurate with the right rifle, right ammunition combination, and other things at that distance. So, yeah, once you get your what is the word? Once you get your variables, your factors dialed in, yeah, you can go. I think you can go 300 yards. Would be somewhere around max in my mind.
Yeah, I did the math, and 110 meters is 7,000 miles.
No, 110 meters. No, come on now. That's some of that anti-gunner math Tony's using over there.
110 meters is 7,000 miles.
Where we're coming
Exactly.
with that. And a 9mm will blow out a lung. Yeah, okay, we got you.
As you were describing that, there's people that shoot steel with 22s because you can shoot them close, I guess, and there's speed matches with 22s. You think of your trees, your dueling trees and stuff like that. And then there must be people that shoot 22. I know there's a lot of people that shoot for accuracy, but there must be people that shoot for distance and accuracy. I just don't know of it because usually it's different calibers for distance, but there must be.
Actually, there's 22 precision matches too to take advantage of the fact that there aren't a lot of long ranges, especially on the East Coast. So what they do is do 22 precision. So you still have all the money you put in precision shooting, but you're using 22 ammo, but you can do it on 3-yard ranges. So that opens up a lot more opportunity for competitors.
Yep.
And what would you call precision? Like it's different than target because target would be more like iron sights and what you might just take out to the field or take out hunting, where precision is more like marksmanship with a maybe more delicate or more heavy or more like less useful for other purposes, for practical purposes, but more useful for long distance accuracy, like a race gun, like a Formula One type of vehicle of guns.
Yeah, I think precision.
Well, the good thing about it is it allows you to get in, but precision is more expensive when you get into really being competitive. But at least it opens the door to you. You can show up with your 1022 and realize you're about to get skunked. But you can spend like about $200 to get a chassis system, and now your 1022 will do better at the precision, and then you determine whether you want to still play in that game or not. And the sky's the limit to the money you'll pay for precision 22 rifles.
I think precision is just that. I mean, take the root of the word, precise, right? And where some people get it mixed up is they're thinking precise in the terms of putting the bullet in the same hole. And that's certainly the case in a lot of stuff, because if you're talking about, 50 foot, 25-yard precision, yeah, I mean, you've got to, everything's got to be dead on. It is precise. Matches are won and lost within 1,000th of an inch, on a hundredth of an inch for sure.
Like you're saying with the pulse, like you got to be worried,
right,
because if you just make an oval instead of a circle, that's a loss.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about precision, people go to the shots on paper, right? The point of impacts, and they think precision. And I think it's more in the way the overall feel of that match, right? You have to be precise in everything you do, from your breathing to your form to your, I mean, everything has to be precise, right? And in order for you to place in that match to do well, right? There's like no room for error. That's the key, is being precise, whatever the distance might be, whatever the targets might be, that sort of thing.
And this, I hear precision matches, and I'm trying to think: is there a difference between that and like marksman, or what would be like back in the day? Like, well, there's like sniper, and that implies adding tactical to it, like adding some amount of you're not going to find me when I take this shot. So
Right.
that makes sense. And then you've got your, obviously your Olympic stuff or sports where they have some other layer of it. I'm just wondering, precision to me makes it sound like a Formula One car where it's kind of a one-trick pony. You're not taking that gun hunting. You're not going to take it elk hunting because it's going to be too heavy or too fragile or something, too expensive. It's just a super fast, or not fast, but a super
Well,
technical gun, or as opposed to, like your scout rifle or your just typical iron sight match where you take that gun, like I say, out in the field and use it as a defense gun or a hunting gun.
right. Well, I've certainly used my fair share of what I would call my precision, my more accurate, my nicer, competition rifles and stuff in 22. And I've had students that have done it as well, um, for squirrel hunting and things like that. I mean, why not? Why not? I've got one by the door now. As a matter of fact, that my daughter shot in many, many, many 50-foot rimfire precision competitions. Why do I got that? Well, it's by the door for varmints and things like that I need to dispatch. And I know that out to 50 yards, I know that it's a headshot every single time. Clean, quick, easy, um, nothing to it. I mean, if I can hit an inch and 5/8 target, not with rings inside that inch and 5/8 circle, mind you, that's not the bullseye. But if I can hit that, I can certainly hit the head on whatever little varmint or whatever it might be, right? One shot, it's easy. I don't got to worry about missing. I don't got to worry about, or I do in a way if I don't do my part, right? But I know that with my training and capability and everything I've done with that rifle, right? I know that my odds of, being able to accomplish that task cleanly, quickly, and easily, are greatly exaggerated. And so, um, yeah, I mean, to say that you can't do it is I think wrong. I
No,
think
I
for
guess
the
you
I think for
wouldn't,
the
just
cost and
because
I think
it's a
for the
one-trick
cost
pony.
involved, right? I mean, if you've got thousands of dollars in your precision competition setup, are you going to want to lug that thing out in the woods and scratch it up and everything else? Because let's be honest, when you go to do competition things, you want shiny, good looking, cool, different equipment, whatever, because that's all part of the mental game in competition, right? Like the person that shows up with the hot rod pool cue or the hot rod car or the whatever. There's an intimidation factor in the visuals sometimes. So if you show up with something all beat up or something like that, you don't have that intimidation factor. So there's yeah.
I took it on a tangent there, but thanks. Let's go to Weston is asking favorite 22 long rifle factory load.
I like a 40 round, 40 grain. Um, that's tough to say, right? Because there's really not such as a load per se, but um, I like somewhere in the neighborhood of a 40 grain lead round nose, well lubed. Um, in the honestly, and I'm gonna say it depends on what for, right? It's like for hunting, I want the velocity to be up a little more. Still not a big fan of any hollow point or ballistic tip stuff in a 22. I'm just not. 22 long rifle, I should say. Um, but I would want it to be for, let's say, hunting use. Probably still go 40 grain, but I would want the velocity up a little bit, probably going in the 1,300 feet a second range. Something truly supersonic. You got to realize you've got subsonic, supersonic, hypersonic. What is the rankings? I can't even remember now, but there's several anyway. You can get 22 long rifle up into the 1,700 feet a second, which is insane. But I would say that supersonic range, let's go with 1,300 feet a second. If I'm shooting competition or something like that, even if we're talking silhouette out to like 110 meters, like we were talking about earlier, I go with the subsonic. I go with subsonic match stuff. Typically, again, in like a 40 grain. Like that lead nose, a lot of them are wax coated or have some type of lube coating when you're talking about the match grade ammunition on that lead. Um, I tend to go that. Now, if we're out in the backyard plinking around still or doing whatever, even still challenge matches and stuff like that, accuracy is not nearly as important at that point, right? And so, basically whatever runs the firearm well, if it's semi-auto, whatever's moderately accurate. I mean, you're talking about being able to hit a 10-inch piece of steel at 25 yards. I mean, that's not difficult. It gets a little more difficult the faster you try to run it in the example of steel challenge, but still not terribly difficult. So I will give some examples. Ely Black Box Match specifically has been my go-to for many, many years on the precision competition side, which is a subsonic. If you're talking about steel challenge, some of the speed matches, and honestly, an all-around ammo for a lot of different uses, including just having fun, is that Federal Auto Match ammunition. Big fan, been a big fan of that for many years. When you get into the hunting side of
Auto
things,
match?
yeah, the Federal Auto Match, yeah.
What does that look like? I don't know if I have
It's
that.
just a lead nose. I believe it's a 40. I believe it's a 40 grain
I mean,
round nose.
what's the
Yeah.
box look like?
Oh, it's white. It's going to be a white box, typically with some black and I think red in it or something. But and it's a bigger box. They only come to my knowledge in 325 round bricks.
Oh, okay. I don't buy a lot like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And then for the Winchester Super X, and Winchester makes a few different variants in the red kind of clear boxes. So for my hunting, I'll typically go with that. It's a little higher velocity. And you got to be careful because there's hollow points and there's some that are some varying velocities. So the ones I get have I believe it's a bullseye and a squirrel on the box, on the clear red cello looking box. And so if you want to get specific about some of the ones I really like, but then that said, I've got a large variety of all kinds of 22 ammunition. So I've got the capability to switch up and do other things. I've just found those. I would say those three I've got the most of, and it's because those three are kind of my go-to for most every 22 I've got. They just kind of work well across the board, and you'll find that's the case, especially when you're talking semi-auto. You'll find, and even semi-auto from pistol to handgun, a lot. I mean, from rifle to handgun, a lot of the 22 ammo, it'll run great in a 1022, and then you switch over to your whatever 1911 22 or whatever it might be, and it's complete garbage. I mean, it just doesn't cycle well, right? A lot of variation and a lot of different 22 ammo, but good lord, I couldn't even begin to guess at how many different brands and flavors and types and models of is currently available today out there on the shelves and in the market. It's absolutely insane. When I did the review on that Glock 44 when it came out a couple years back or whatever, I know I went through like 42 different types of ammo, and I didn't even scratch the surface of everything that was out there.
One of the things I like to do when I go to gun shops or gun shows is go to the tables that have nothing but collector ammo and just be amazed at how much variety, like you say, and there's just tons. And then if you think about the stuff that's come and gone that doesn't exist anymore, somebody could have bought, and that's not realistic at all, to buy 1,000 rounds of 22. That's not even hard, right?
Yeah.
Especially whatever, tons of circumstances. You're going to be in the competition. You hope your kid's going to be, you come across a good deal, whatever, right? You buy 1,000 rounds, and then you go shoot 700 rounds of it and you think it's great, and then you tell everybody how great it is, and there's no chance of them buying that ammo because it's been out of production for 10 years, right? Like that situation will happen because it's possible to have 1,000 rounds of 22 just sitting on a shelf, and you don't realize when you pick it up to start using it that no one's going to be able to just do that.
And you bring up a good point in that you talk about the collectability market. I got to wonder, and you probably know what I'm talking about, the Colt 22 ammo. I've got to wonder how many people have bought. And
You
I'm
have
talking
Colt brand 22 ammo?
Right. And I've got to
Wow, I didn't
wonder
know
how
that
many
existed.
I've got to wonder how many people in like the last 10 years have bought that at like a garage sale, a flea market, a gun show, something, right? Not realizing how collectible that was, and then took it home and shot it. And you're like, oh my
It's
God.
hard for me to work at a gun shop. And the reason I could never work at a gun shop full time is because of that. Every time I saw Chinese ammo, Chinese 7.62 by 39 ammo, even before I really collected it, and I would see the steel core ammo going to be shot, and I know exactly where it's going, up the hill to be shot into the dirt up there. I was like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, go buy garbage and keep that steel core for when we need it.
Yeah. Well, a little
Yeah,
different situation with a 22.
In
It's
a
not what you
spam
needed.
can, so it's
It's a collectible, but yeah, I hear you.
no, it's a collectible, but it's also a collectible. That particular situation, it's a collectible in a spam can that they're going to bust open the
Right.
climate controlled spam can and shoot it into the hill when they could just buy a wolf for the same price almost. Anyway, my answer would be Gold Dot. I really like Gold Dot in everything, but that would be high end expensive ammo for carrying around. The CCI, they name it different things, and I don't keep up. I usually buy by price, but CCI for me has always been in these little boxes. This kind of stuff is more expensive, but these work. Like these are decent ammo for hunting or for
Yeah, velocity
an important.
That's a high
But
velocity though. Yeah.
yep.
Velocitor is expensive, I think, but there's other ones. I wouldn't say every single one, but I know Velocitor was a good one for my little 22s. My little 22s are finicky and half broken, so they need a powerful ammo. And this, I don't know if it's the snappiest, it's just reliably strong
It is.
ammo.
That is for CCI. Stinger is a notch down from Velocitors. So
Oh, and that's what I was really looking for.
Yeah.
I figured this was less. So Stinger is what I was going to pick. I just don't
yeah,
have one.
Stinger's actually a little less velocity wise.
Okay.
So yeah, I roll with the Federal, just like what is it, the auto match? Because when you go by what favorite do you have, I just have to look and see which one I have the most of, and it's definitely that 325 box round of Federal. I used to be able to pick those up for $20, and I would tell people, hey, buy a box a week and just put it away, and that's what I did. And then I started diversity shooting. That really came through for me, having that much 22 put aside, and also CCIs, because I had different 22s. I have two different 1022s, and I have an SR22 handgun from Ruger, and it works in all of those. And also, I had a lot of Agila. Uh, they had weird names like Super Supreme Velocity. It was like one too many words in their super velocity stuff. It was like a super velocity extreme. Anyway, I got that. It was over 17, almost 1,800 feet per second, only because I wanted to make sure it worked. And I was able to get a lot of it once. And of course, CCI, velocitors, and stingers, because I just never had a problem with it. My only issue ever came with the whole Remington Golden Bullet or whatever it was called. Those were the only times I had any issues with any of my firearms shooting 22. So people have gifted it to me because of the diversity shoot, and once I got rid of it, I just never used it again. I wouldn't even take it to a diversity shoot, because if I'm introducing someone to firearms, having hang fires was not something that I wanted, or duds is not something I wanted to introduce people to the first time they shot a gun.
So I want to follow up on that, Tony, for a second. You mentioned the golden bullets, because it never entered my mind to go down this road. But so what type of packaging do you have experience with the golden bullets in? The slide top boxes, the bulk,
Yep.
the
Slide
bulk,
top boxes.
really, the 100-round count?
The slide top 100-round count. Yeah, because theirs is more in a square, because CCI's is elongated,
Yes,
right?
correct.
100 round. Yeah, so what happened is one of the ladies from one of the female shooting clubs, she had some, and she just gave it to me. She said it wasn't working with her.
Right.
And she stopped using 22s to introduce women to firearms anyway, and started using the 9. I think I told you the story the other night. So she was getting rid of her 22s. And I took it to the range because I just wanted to check it out. And I was having a lot of misfires and duds with her ammo. And that was the only one I used. So I didn't buy anymore. So, I mean, to be fair, I use hers. And there were just enough options out there that I never had to go there. I just didn't go there again. I didn't want to waste the money in case,
No, I hear you.
that was bad. Yeah.
So I kept back in the day. We had some 1911 22s, and then some of those little Sig Mosquito 22s. We had several things in the club, and those Remington Golden Bullets in the square box, I don't like G Webs has there. Those were the ones that weren't the most accurate or anything like that for sure, but at least would cycle properly.
Okay.
As far as cost wise, but I did. And I got some very crappy old videos on the channel with it, but this was back in kind of the tail end of those days. But I did some homework and some research, and I can verify unequivocally that the smaller the packaging of the Remington Golden Bullets, the better that ammunition actually is. The
Okay.
quality control, it's almost as if, and I don't know, obviously they've switched hands and everything else at this point anyway, so who knows? But it's almost as if they had a criteria, right? It went through a certain QC, and the ones that passed it with flying colors went into this kind of a box. The ones that, maybe they're okay, went into this kind of box. And then the ones that were total garbage went into the bucket of bullets.
It makes sense. But
That makes a lot of sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense.
So so the reason I picked the ones I have is because they were dependable, easy to get. And after I picked up my CZ, because it was set up as a training rifle and very, very accurate, that's when I started looking for target ammo just for 22s, and I started buying Ely.
Right.
And then I got more into other things came up, and I never really got to jump on that and take my time.
Yeah.
I think it was right before COVID. I was setting up so I could actually, because I like precision, precise, taking your time, breathing, target shooting. And I was going to work that and see how much different loads change my point of impact or my accuracy.
Right.
So I was definitely planning on having fun with that because, again, even target, like expensive target ammo for 22s isn't that expensive, really, compared to centerfire.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I mean, a box of the Ely Black Match, I'm talking about even nowadays with price increases and everything else, is still right around $20 a box of 50, right? So, I mean, you're talking 9mm price. I was getting it for as cheap as I think maybe 13 or 14 back in the day, which was crazy, insane expensive. So when you talk about Ely, the cool thing about Ely, they dominate as far as Olympic gold medals. So there's almost no disputing that they're the king, right? If you want precision. But to a point G was making earlier, and something that is definitely worth pointing out, whether we're talking about Remington Golden Bullets or anything else, pretty much every box of ammo I've ever seen, you can get online if it's not blatantly obvious, and you can figure out how to identify the lot number. And so here's something that I would suggest. If you find something that does really well for accuracy, for cycling, for all of these different things, you know, pick up a couple of boxes if you're just, if you're just plinking around or whatever. If it works well, make a note of that lot number, because these companies can make thousands and thousands of boxes of a lot number. And then when you're looking at stuff on the shelf, you may go, oh, snap, that's that lot number that did really, really well, right? Even though it might not be typically your choice of ammo, you know that particular one, that particular lot number does well, right? And then you would buy everything on the shelf and put it up. And I did that for many, many years. I've got some lots in there that I may have, I've got hundreds of boxes of one lot number, right? And so it's like I know that the repeatability on that stuff, how it's going to perform and everything else. And there's a lot of comfort in that.
Yeah, very true.
So I think we got
just fiddling. So the next one is, oh wait, no, we had this one. Oh wait, no, here we go. This is the next one. MC asks, Lifesaver 22 shoots were fun. No, not breaking the candy, shooting through the center. I was going to put that one up. It's more of a statement, but when you were talking about pulses and stuff, people go, pulse, what are you talking about? There's kids that can do that, like little kids. I've seen, I used to be able to shoot shoelaces when I was a superstar. I didn't practice all that much. I definitely seen kids that worry about stuff like, making a tiny little oval instead of a perfect circular hole in the center of that thing against other kids that are the same way.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I shot, if you remember the lawn chair pop here a while back, and I was shooting a sure enough, three position precision little rifle, but at 25 yards, I had those dumb suckers, and I was able to cut. I didn't do it every single time, obviously, but I was totally capable of offhand, not like having the rifle rested or on any kind of a, what am I thinking about? A rifle rest or anything. Just I was sitting down, but offhand, I was able to cut the sucker stem or whatever with that. I mean, easily. So assuming that everything is right, you know what I mean. Assuming that my sight picture's correct, my holds are right, my breathing's right, my trigger pull's right. I mean, it's the rifle and the ammunition can do it.
Yep.
And that's another thing that you see a lot with 22 is, it really. I go back to that level of difficulty, right? It's like depending on what you want to do with it, the level of difficulty can be wild.
It really can. And again, it's inexpensive fun. Like you can do, you can go out and do a top shot kind of craziness shoots with this and get pretty good at it because trigger time is trigger time. Don't let anyone tell you any different. So when you're having fun and you're shooting lollipop sticks with your handgun, 22 handgun at 15, 20 yards, that's going to translate into shooting your Glock better. It's going to translate into being able to have that practice in your marksmanship fundamentals that just will come easier and quicker.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say muscle memory because people love to get all twisted out about that. But practice is practice. and you just get better at it. And that's what I learned between dry fire and shooting 22s. I attribute all of that to me being better than average with a handgun.
Right. Muscle memory, when you're talking precision, I don't view muscle memory as like a thing. It's interesting you brought that up. Now, when you're talking about, when you're talking about something like maybe archery, or you're talking about shotgunning, or you're talking about speed, like still challenge type thing. Absolutely. I think muscle memory is a thing, right? Especially when you're talking defensive training and things. Muscle memory, I think, is a thing. With precision, muscle memory to me implies movement, right? Your muscles move a certain way, a certain length, a certain direction, and you train that over and over and over. That way you don't overextend or underextend or move too far or move too little. You know what I mean? With precision, the key is not moving at all. It's like you want like no movement. You don't want any wobble. I mean, this is where we talk about breathing and pulse. Even that type of movement, when you're talking precision, can be the difference between I placed first and I placed ninth. So I don't typically talk muscle memory. I do talk about being able to get into the proper form and things like that. And there certainly is some validity, I guess, to the muscle memory thing as far as naturally being able to get into the proper form you need to get in and things like that. And it feeling comfortable to you is another thing because
you mean like stance?
Yeah.
The shooting position.
Yeah. Right.
And that's where, you're right. I believe that's where the muscle memory comes in, is getting in that position quickly, having it be a solid position, and then you can work from there. Again, not moving because you have bone on bone.
Right.
Structure.
But in precision matches, and this is where we diverge a little bit, I think, maybe with the muscle memory, because in precision matches, like a lot of the ones I know, you're firing 30 rounds in 45 minutes, right? You've got time. You've got time to, it's not like you have to get into that position quickly. You've got time to take your time, make sure all your ducks are in a row, right? The biggest issue I've ever seen, and we're talking predominantly dealing with kids who are impatient anyway, right? And my youngest daughter was the greatest at time management. She would eat up the clock would be counting down the final seconds as she fired her final round. She would get up, take a break, get some water, the whole nine, and really utilize that clock. Whereas a lot of kids get down and go pow, 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 pow. They're not shooting that fast, obviously, because they're using bolt action. But you get where I'm going, right? They would get down in a position. They would pop, 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 pop. They would take no break. They would do, and it affects things, when you've got time with the precision stuff. Now there are some precision stuff that is timed, especially when you get into some of the bullseye pistol matches, for example, and things like that. You've got the slow fire phases. You got plenty of time there, but when you get into rapid fire, for example, you've still got a lot of time, but you don't have nearly as much time. So things like that do make a difference to be able to get into that position as quickly as possible, because you can't raise that firearm until the call's given.
I think it's funny because, again, I started out in high school with the precision shooting with air rifle, and that taught me that timing that your daughter, learned to use. And it came back when I was taking a Chris Costa rifle class, and we went prone 50 yards, tightening it up. And he was like, all right, this is timed. And the guys dropped down, and I forgot how long we had to shoot these rounds. But I'm like, I counted every, round, made sure my breathing was right, made sure my sight pitches was right. And of course, these guys, many of them have never shot like that ever. So they burned through it right away. I shoot this really tight group, and my last shot broke like 3 seconds before the timer goes off. And Costa was like, yo, dude, you nailed that timing. I'm like, yeah, been doing it kind of for years.
Used to it. Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there was you were talking about that. It was a point I was going to make, and I can't think of what it was now. Dang. Yeah, I don't remember.
Time management.
Yeah, I think it dealt with that. I can't think of what it was. Crap. Yeah, we can circle back around if I remember.
I'm going to jump on to the next one. But,
yeah.
Ron is asking, what are you guys' thoughts on the 22 Aguila 60 grain? What is that?
Subsonic. I've shot it. It stinks, but it works. And that thing hits hard because it's a 60 grain.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Tony. I'm not a fan. I wouldn't use it for anything other than, hey, this is a 60 grain. Let's go see what it does. Oh, it dings steel really well or whatever. Cool. Or I'm running it through a suppressor. So it's like, oh, this is really quiet. I mean, that's about where it is for me.
So for people who don't speak 22, I have this other box of Aguila over here. Where did I put it? A box. Where did I put it? There's typically your Aguila is the silent stuff. And it has either a really tiny projectile, right? Where did I put it? I guess I didn't take it out. This Colibri stuff has a 20 grain projectile. So when you're saying a 60 grain, this stuff here, I don't know, something else, tell me what grain it is. What's a standard grain on a 22, like 40?
36 to 40.
So we're talking basically a 22 Magnum projectile in a 22 long rifle case with not that much powder, so that it's a massive thing going very slow so that it doesn't break the sound barrier. Is that what we're talking?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's a unique combo of things. It's very little powder, the biggest projectile you can shove down a barrel without worrying about if it can go out of a rifle, probably. And it probably still says on the box somewhere, this is only made for handgun. And it's designed to be quiet and offer a lot of energy delivery when it gets there. Instead of just being accurate, it's offering energy to knock out a critter or something, or knock out a bird when it hits it.
Mm-hmm. I look at something like that as you live in a suburban area and you don't want to have the sonic crack of a 22, but you're doing some pest elimination or something like that. That's the way I see that. Plus, you also have to make sure it's accurate, because you want to hit what you're aiming at. And it's big, heavy, slow, so it shouldn't go that far, because, again, it's big, heavy, and slow. So whatever you hit, it should stop on the other side of it.
Yep.
Small game-wise.
Yep.
So we all want it, but we aren't going to use it very often. Right? I'd like to have a few boxes of it or something, but
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, 22 short, same thing, in my
Is
opinion.
this Gemtech going to be real close?
Yeah, the Gentek's pretty close to what that Agula is,
So it's
and then
just,
Agula.
I don't know if this got the same projectile, but this is heavier. 42 grain. So this isn't still as big as that projectile, but
Right.
it's the same idea. Be an effective, quiet 22 that doesn't break sound barrier.
And then you've got the CCI CB shorts.
Yep,
Charlie
CB
Bravo
shorts.
CB shorts, and then you've also got the Agula Calibri, which
Yep.
are the Agula Calibri. The CCI shorts are basically a normal projectile with no powder at all, I think. And then if there is, there's very little. And then the Agula Calibri are almost like a 22 pellet or something, very small projectile with no powder. And those are quiet too. And if you're talking about very small, rats or mice or something, plenty enough. I mean, you're talking about slightly better probably than a pellet rifle on either of those.
Yep.
Barely a
And-
pellet, right? That's what I would consider the Calibri. It's just the primer in a 22 is what I thought.
It
Right?
kind of is, yeah.
And it's basically, we use it when we go camping just to shoot at flowers and whatever we're shooting at, just shooting for plinking because it's quiet, basically.
The reason I would not say it's a pellet rifle is because with air, you have the possibility of some inconsistency with the volume, right? The PSI behind that projectile. Whereas if those Calibri or the CB short or whatever are going to be pretty similar, at least across a box and hopefully across a lot. With what they do, you don't got to worry about pumping something back up again, or is my CO2 cartridge low, or things like that affecting your point of aim versus your point of impact.
Did they just change the box from that Hummingbird to this, or is there a difference between the Rainbow Hummingbird box and the more normal looking box?
I think that's just a box change.
Okay. Yeah, I usually see the top one. And also with air guns, which people don't know, especially if you use the Springer, it's the position you have your hand on it. Like everything with a Springer is harder. You don't have to deal with that with a 22.
So I remember what I was going to say, Tony. You said air gun, and I remembered. One of the great things about, and I never was a huge fan, and I'm still not, to be honest. If the child's big enough to shoot pellet rifles, like serious pellet rifles, they probably can handle 22. But there is some validity to the air gun, especially rifle. Let me take that back. Rifle and pistol, and it's in follow through. Follow through with air, and archery it is too, is super, super important. Follow through in shotgun is super important too, but that's a whole different concept. Follow through when you're talking about archery and air rifle is no movement after the shot breaks, right? That type of follow through. I usually teach my kids to count down from 3. It's like bang, 2, 1, okay, come off, right? And so air gun it's more exaggerated. If you have a follow through problem, it's really easy. It's a lot easier to tell that. And once you can nail down your follow through with air gun and translate that, if you're having a problem with follow through, get you an air rifle and especially a BB gun, to be quite honest with you, because BB guns are the worst with follow through. Get you a BB gun of some kind, of a BB rifle, and practice your follow through with that BB rifle. And then that's going to make you even better when it comes to 22, and then of course everything else above that.
Oh, I'm just laughing because the less and less expensive we get, right? We've gone from 22s to BB rifles, and it's like it helps improve your marksmanship fundamentals.
Yeah, the level of difficulty truly is higher.
But listen to it though. When you listen to people talk, they think it's kids' guns and it's a beginner gun, and I'm like, it can be. But depends on what you make it do. And when you're trying to hit small targets consistently, you're going to have to put those things to work. And the least expensive ways to do it is BBs and 22s.
Yep.
And I found that if you guys remember the old Crossman pump pistols, I think 1722s they were called or something like that.
Right.
They sell them at Walmart now. Well, of course, I had one growing up. And then I found one at Walmart in PA and purchased it there, because if I would have bought it in Jersey, I would have actually had to go to the police department and get a pistol purchase permit to pick up the pellet gun. But I picked that up and took it to my backyard. I set up some targets with some, what is it, duct putty or whatever you call it, duct seal as a backstop. And I started shooting air rifle at 10 meters again, or air pistol at 10 meters again. And man, does that bring out all the work you need to do with putting rounds on target with a handgun. And again, I'm using Crossman pellets. And I did the same thing I did with the 22. I started buying more and more expensive 177 pellets,
Right.
Just to see what worked. And I started getting some Beeman and some heavier pellets for more precision work, and it actually showed up in the way my targets looked.
Yep.
And I think that was some of the most fun there was. So yeah, don't sleep on the 22. How much you can learn, and even a handgun or pellet rifle, especially if you live in a restricted state. Or you live somewhere where you can't shoot within city limits, something that actually uses gunpowder. Air rifles are a great option, or air guns are a great option.
And you make a solid point about testing out some different pellets or even different BBs. And I've learned this with that Brodax revolver that I got in here a few weeks ago. I'm gonna have to go out and get several different types of BBs and stuff and play with them, because I was actually talking with them at NRAM about some of the things not bad things, but just some of the things I experienced with that. And they were like, "You just went out and got the cheapest BBs you could find, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." I'm not gonna lie. And I mean, we tend to do that, right? We go out, we get our kid a BB gun, or we get ourselves one to play around with, and we buy the cheap crap. That's just what we do. And
you don't probably
at the end of the day, especially if you're talking about pellets and you're talking about a rifled barrel, at the end of the day, you run into the same issues as modern firearms. I mean, the rifling and all of that stuff, has to made up correctly, and some types of pellets and BBs just won't perform as good in some rifles as others.
Yep, definitely.
Most people don't know there's grades to that stuff until you experience the fact that there's grades to that stuff.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
Right. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, if you're just, shooting at paper or shooting at, empty Coke cans or soup cans or whatever, if you're good enough, you got good enough ammo or whatever it is, or pellets or BB, whatever, to hit those. Who cares if you're just out there having fun? But we gotta discern between, are we just going out and basically wasting ammo or whatever and having fun, or are we trying to get better, or are we trying to actually become more precise, or what's the overall goal? What do we want to do? What's the task at hand, right?
Yeah, and that's with any firearms purchase or any purchase of anything.
Totally.
What's the job you want this thing to do?
All right, so here's an easy one for everybody. Thanks everybody for throwing in questions. We usually try to stay at an hour. That means we go to 90 minutes, and then we usually get done 2 hours. So we'll try to hit all these questions that are coming in. They're not coming in that fast, but thanks to the people that are throwing them in here. So again, this is an easy softball. This from Weston? What's the best all-around bullet grain for 22? Real quick, what's the best weight grain bullet for that? Real quick,
I think 40.
I think in that same area, 36, 40, whole thing.
Yeah, definitely no lighter than 36, and definitely no heavier than 40. But I go 40 if I
all around.
Yeah, that's the around, for sure. But I think that's the reason we haven't really specifically said it, but these things range from 20 or less grains, because you can have really weird little projectiles or shot shells even, all the way up to 60 something.
60,
yeah.
So one of the neat things about 22, for lots of reasons, there's tons of tech in it. So, the best, I thought, I was trying to be facetious or whatever, funny. I thought you guys were going to say, oh, it depends, because it kind of depends. Because if you want to be quiet, you know what I mean? That's different than if you want to be accurate somewhere long distance, short distance, whatever.
Yeah, we just kind of said depends on what you want to do with that particular thing. But we meant just right down the middle, man. You got a Ruger 1022, a Vital 60, or whatever. What is the box you grab that will do the 22 thing? And
I would say, when you're just talking in general, this is kind of a side question, but if you buy a box of 22 long rifle in a box like this, you're good to go, right? Like, they're never going to bother putting something in a box like this that isn't decent for pretty much it's going to be fine for a revolver, because honestly, anything's going to work in a revolver unless it's got bad fingers. But to cycle and action, it doesn't matter the brand. Just if it's in this kind of, more than one brand uses these box, right? It's just when you get it in some kind of box that costs some money, it means that they're differentiating it from the other ones. and you're probably somebody who doesn't want your bullets to get all knocked around, because that's the other reason for this, is that this box of ammo or bag of ammo is getting all jostled around, and it's semi-fragile. It's getting dinked up and dented and whatever. It's not super fragile, but it ain't as nice as this, which is never even hardly, I don't think it can touch each other, can it? It's literally just in about as pristine a condition as you can get. So typically they're only going to bother with this in the decent, whatever, the decent model of their ammo or the decent brand of their ammo. I shouldn't say whatever brand it is, decent level.
That's funny because it's the same thing with pellets. If you look at the bulk pack from Crosman, you know, that has 500 rounds in it, it's all dumped in a 10. But then when you get up to things like the more expensive pellets, it's like the 10 itself has felt at the bottom or cushion at the bottom and on top. So like the pellets don't bang against each other. Yeah, and deform. So same thing. Because it's all soft lead.
Yep. Did you skip one, G? Just curious. The barrel length one up there.
Did we?
Yeah.
I could have. Oh yeah, I totally did. What is a good barrel length for and twist rate for 22? So I'll let you guys take that one in.
I say 16-inch twist is pretty standard, and 20-inch barrel length is what I would consider optimal for complete powder burn in most 22. We talked about a lot of 22 long rifle loads, and there's jillions out there. 16-inch is usually plenty to complete the burn and everything in it, but that extra little bit, you don't know if it's stabilization. I honestly don't know the science behind it, but I go 16-inch twist, which seems to be the common standard, and then that 20-inch barrel length.
I kind of agree. I mean, I don't really get that into it, but you want the whole velocity thing going, because that's what, I mean, really, they measure it and do the velocity test with a 20-inch barrel for most part, right?
Yeah.
What they have on the side of boxes. So
well,
that's what I go with.
You want
some of them do 24.
So you want the velocity. I agree with you, Tony, and I disagree.
Okay.
You want the velocity, and then on the same hand, you don't. Subsonic ammunition. That's why the vast majority of your match ammunitions are subsonic. Subsonic, and I think that's why 22 is historically a lot more accurate than other ammunition, other calibers that are out there, is because it is slower. So when you stay in that, when you stay in that subsonic realm, I think that's when you get the best accuracy. So even a round that, let's say, is rated on the box at 16, 1700, 13, 1400 feet a second in a handgun or in a shorter barrel can be subsonic because it's not building up. And then the second thing that I would say about that I didn't mention a second ago is longer barrel length. You got to keep in mind something about longer barrel length, and this is why you see a lot of your competition rifles that are like 4 foot long. That's an exaggeration, but you get where I'm saying. They're super long, and you're like, oh my God, why you need that long? Right? Well, it's because of sight radius. When you start talking about having front and rear irons, that extended sight radius is going to create a more accurate scenario as well. G-Webs is breaking out the artwork now. Looks like the come and take it cannon. Just saying.
Yeah, doesn't it though? I was looking at it. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm roboting, so go ahead and take it while I get better internet here.
Oh, what I was going to say is, what I meant by saying the velocity is it meets the velocity that's on the side of the box, what they do the testing with. Right. The longer barrel.
Gotcha.
That's what I meant by that. But yeah, definitely right. When a round breaks the sonic barrier, it affects its accuracy. That's why a lot of the target pellet rifles, again, keep it below the sonic boom, and they're very, very accurate. And once you get above it, it starts doing weird things, because with pellets and even with 22s, they don't have that great ballistic coefficient like boat tail rounds or Spitzer bullets. So definitely below the sonic barriers where you want 22s to be accurate.
So if I'm connected again, I was just putting this. So if this is the barrel and the the in a rifle or whatever, actually a handgun even, this is the cartridge over here with the projectile. So the primer ignites the powder, and then that starts to ignite, and then the expanding gases are going to push that projectile out. So you've got the friction of how tight the projectile is to the barrel, and that's where the rifling comes into effect, and is factors in the math and stuff. But as far as the distance of that barrel, the question about what is it, the barrel length for that projectile is going to have a weight, so that's one factor in the math. And then this
Correct.
barrel length is going to have friction, right? So that if you put too much barrel length, the bullet will just stop somewhere. Like there won't be enough pressure to push it out, right? If you put it too short, then it never gets a chance to ever get any spin, and it never gets a chance to build pressure. So it's just going to kind of fall out, right? Like if you just ignite a primer and a cartridge, it's just going to fall out. It doesn't get pushed out. It just falls out. So if the barrel's too short, the projectile is going to drop. If it gets too long, the projectile is just going to stop somewhere. So there's that sweet spot where friction, it's going to break friction, and friction doesn't start to slow it down again. But then you're also getting the full capability of rifling. And then there's something in there. Like if you have a slow rifling, like, the spiral, then as opposed to a really fast rifling, too long a barrel, you lose some of that, or you gain some of that. That's all part of this, right? So you've got people that reload and worry about the projectile and the powder and the math and the chemistry over here. You get people that are worried about the engineering of the barrel and the centricity of the bore and all this stuff and the muzzle and all that. And then you get people that are into the math and the trajectory of when all this is tuned in to getting it on the paper. And then some people overlook all that, and just as long as it's within realm, like, will this fit in here? Is it safe? Is it within the reasonable distance? And then boom, they're just making hits, right? Like that's sort of the question, is how do you do that math? And I guess to answer it then, Clover, you're saying a 20-inch barrel, and then Tony, did you say the same thing?
Yeah, definitely.
So if you go to at what distance is a barrel too long for 22? Just to put some boundaries on it.
Oh, good. That's a good question.
All right, because I'm going to go to the longest barrel thing I have, which is a Henry Frontier, and I think that has like a 24-inch barrel. And I got that CZ Ultralux, and I think it does too, like 24, 26-inch barrel. They're the ones that's like to the limit, and depends on what you use. So if I use a 22 short, or maybe one of those CBs, that round can actually get stuck before it comes out of the barrel, if I'm not careful, because it's so long, that will run out of energy. Or at least that's what they say on the side of the box. I didn't have it happen, but I was prepared for it to happen when I put them in there. So that's the only way I think it can be too long and just keep it reasonable. I don't think anybody sells like a 30-inch 22 barrel.
I don't either. I mean, even when you get into your Olympic grade, your high competition grade, I don't know that I've ever seen anything longer than a 24.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because that's really the answer, right? Because if they could get advantage and they had no rules, then why wouldn't they make it a 70-inch barrel? Right.
Now that said, and Tony probably knows where I'm going with this. That said, they do make barrel sight extensions that it looks like you'll see a competition and you're like, well, that person's got a 6-foot barrel. What in the world? And it's not. It's basically an extension that it just extends the sight radius. It's a tube, or it's a, you know what I mean? It's not part of the barrel.
Really? So I was going to say like a counterweight, but you're saying just to have a longer sight radius, they'll literally just put like a comb on top of the barrel, like on a shotgun. They'll just put that comb on there way out past the barrel, because they know
like a rib or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So interesting. I didn't ever thought about that.
Yep.
So some of them long chokes, or is that different? Any long chokes doing that? Some of them
like with a shotgun, like extended chokes. There's several reasons for an extended choke. That's in a shotgun. That gets in a whole different conversation. A lot of that can be recoil mitigation. It can be just the ease of changing the choke, because a lot of people that use extended chokes
so you can work on it.
Yeah, they're swapping from stage to stage. You really don't need a tool to do that. You can break it loose pretty easily and run it in and out with your hand.
You just swap it out with a new one, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about cleaning it.
Well, this is true. And
if they're worried about shot pattern, but anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah.
So the next one, I think the next one was, Well, I was just reading. MC said the Sportsman Club of Men holds an informal CMP, civilian marksmanship program, rimfire shoot each month. 60 rounds of fire, 50 to 25 yards, 6 10-round sections covering fast and slow prone, slow and fast kneeling, and then sitting at 50. And that sounds like a lot like what we did in Scouts. Is that kind of a couple of stages or a couple of positions, I guess, and then slow fire. And I never got into it like you guys were talking about taking the time. Like I never got into it that much, but that makes sense that if you get 30 seconds to shoot 6 rounds or something, that figure out so you don't stress yourself and you know you're giving yourself enough time. There's a lot to it.
That's a world of time. Once you get into the competition world, you realize that a couple seconds a shot is a lot. Even with a bolt rifle, it's a lot.
It's a lot of time. You learn it.
That's why I'm glad they don't use semi-automatic guns in any sports, because that would be too many. All right, so that was being funny because that's just nonsense. These words that people are using right now nonsensically. Have you seen, this one's from MC, a real question. Have you seen the videos of people reloading 22 and thoughts?
Oh yeah,
that was bad there too. When the reloading, when 22 was, the reason I have this box is like all of these are cheap because there's like 1 or 2 rounds missing out of it. And when I go to gun shops to visit or hang out or just to walk in the door and see what's up, I'll try to buy something like a open box because it's usually a couple bucks cheaper than the full box, and it gives me something I can buy. And you know what's wrong with having a bunch of ammo? But in those times, the reason I do this is because I've lived through times when 22 gets dried up, and I think that's when people are reloading. I don't think we've heard about it too much since, but what do you guys think about it?
It is a very tedious process. I've got a buddy that has the kit that was made some time ago where you can actually swage 22. You use 22 cases to swage a jacket, and you mold, and it comes with a mold, and it's basically a kit to do it, right? And what I have found is that in any, even the kits, let alone trying to do something by hand, can you make it work? Yeah, you can make it work. You can make it go bang, and the projectile come out the end of the barrel. But just with years literally of playing around with his stuff and everything, being able to get it accurate is a problem. Once you ding, you got to realize that 22 long rifle head spaces on the case rim. It's rimmed cartridges. It head spaces on that rim. Once you ding that rim, right, and slam a bolt into it or whatever the case may be, you change the parameters of that rim. And so the headspace is going to be off just a little bit. Now we're talking precision. We're talking being able to precisely hit some things. But yeah, the consistency, the precision, just all of that to me with reloading 22 is not there. Is it fun to do just to say you did it? Yeah. But the companies that are producing, even the crappiest companies that are producing 22, have some pretty advanced machinery that do it. And they do it, those machines do it a lot more consistently than you can do it with any of the equipment I've seen on the market.
Yeah, I feel do what you want to do because you're a grown man or woman. But if you're going to take the time and the material to reload, why not reload centerfire ammo? That's easier, bigger diameter. I mean, think about pouring powder into a 22 cartridge. That's nuts. It's going to make a 38 look like a 55-gallon bucket.
Well, and it's having the right powder too. There's not very many that are that good, and you really, yeah, you're right. It sucks. You're more. I would say the times I've do it, it's more powder residue almost in the case than it is putting powder in it. It's weird.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, do what you want to do, but I wouldn't. Like Clover said, just to say you did it. Go ahead. Cool story, bro. Cool story, bro.
Yeah, I've talked about making before. I've talked about making 300 blackouts, taking a 5.56 and a 308, and making a 300 blackout. Actually, made multiple without any electricity. Right, just because I'm a 300 blackout guy, and I've had people go, "Oh, you know what happens when you don't have their scales and you're this and you're that," and I'm like, I think you could still do it. And I did, just to prove that it could be done. Now, would I want to do that? It's like, probably not, but it can be done. You can take 2 rounds and make 1. It does work.
Don't have much to add on the There's another
It's
thing
Clover
that's
Tech. It's Clover Tech and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome when he has to make his own 300 blackout.
Right.
He's forging it. So I think the another thing that's adjacent to reloading 22 is taking the 22 brass that's shot and turning it into 223. Swaging, is that what it is? Swaging 223 with brass from 22. So that's another thing that you can do with 22 if you don't like the idea of wasting a bunch of 22. Plus 22 brass, spent 22 brass is a super useful thing that just be creative. You might want to wash it out if you're giving it to kids or something, but it's like a tack. It can be a rivet. It can be a brad. It can be a nail. Like, it's a interesting little piece of.
I've got. So do you know the little major, major retail box stores that sell the, assemble them yourself cheap particle board cabinets? You know what I'm talking about?
I only buy things made out of fancy rainforest woods, but I've heard of people buying.
You know what I'm talking about, though. So the pegs that hold the doors in. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The little wood dowels.
The dowels.
So I've got those eventually break if you have those cabinets long enough, and a 22 Magnum case works perfectly to replace that. Just ask me how I know, because it does. It's perfect for that.
That's funny.
Yeah, and even if you had an issue, you could fill it with something easily.
Yeah.
And it would still be the dimensions, and it would hold whatever you put in there, like a jam it into what am I trying to say, a chopstick or something to fill it with bamboo. It would be super easy. And then if you're worried about it crushing or something,
right,
depending on how much weight on the shelf. But no, that's exactly. I think I'm down to this one. If I'm missing a question, feel free to let us know that we missed one. But Smeggy saying his dad's Sig Mosquito is very picky on ammo types. He barely shoots it because it's annoying. I just wanted to put that one out there to be the indicator for we haven't really covered 22 in a revolver versus 22 in semi-auto, 22 in a handgun versus 22 in a rifle. And then same kind of thing, bolt action versus semi-auto. You get things like rim lock. I brought a couple of magazines to be able to point things out, but rim lock, you get issues with removing the spent case because of lack of what am I trying to say? Lack of taper, or when there is taper. So those kind of issues. You guys want to address those kind of things? The issues that we can have use. Anyway, go for it. I don't want to mansplain. Go for it.
Well, I only have experience with the lever actions, the bolt actions, and the semi-autos when it comes to rifles, and really not that much of a problem with any of them. I mean, to make it because of course I found the ammo that works, and I keep using that ammo after I found what works. I didn't really stray further from that, and I made sure I found at least 3 to 4 ammos that work just in case we have crazy times and if I can't find the box of Federal, I can go with CCI. If I can't find a CCI, I can go with the Agila. I have a whole list of things I go down. So when you compare them, I find something that works in everything I have. I've been lucky enough because the only handgun that's 22 I have is the Ruger SR22, even though I mean to get other handguns in 22. And it feeds the exact same stuff that the rifles feed. So I got lucky, but I also did the research to make sure I got something to work across all platforms.
Yeah. So talking about that's a Sig Mosquito that I don't know if it's still for sale, but I know the design was taken over by GSG and they called it the Firefly.
Yep.
Was notorious, and honestly, all of the Sig 22 stuff they did was that the 1911s I spoke about earlier, where that we had different ammunition issues. They were Sigs. So yeah, you're gonna have those different issues. At some point, do you blame the firearm or do you blame the ammunition, right? I think that's where a lot of people, they don't understand the nuances and just the wide availability and the different types and other things of ammunition. They understand it, which is weird when it comes to like center fire, but they don't understand that, okay, if I'm shooting a 32 grain in this, maybe I need to bump up to a 40 grain, or whatever the case may be. They don't get that, right? Because the numbers are so low, those grain numbers, that it never registers, right? But those springs and actions and a lot of the other things are tuned. You've also got, how the quality of the case that's used, the quality of the priming compound inside, all of that is gonna factor in and make a difference. I know that I can't remember what brand it was now to save my life, but I want to say it was like some of the Winchester 333 white boxes. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Winchester Wildcat. Maybe it was Winchester Wildcat. Now the Winchester Expert, I haven't had a ton of trouble with, but maybe it's the Winchester Wildcat. That stuff and we primarily used bolt rifles. That stuff was super dirty, first of all, and the cases would swell. So you would get some where you would fire them and you couldn't open the bolt. You couldn't, a kid couldn't. It was hard to open the bolt and extract that case. And sometimes it would tear the case head even when you did that. And then you had to dig that stuff out with a pocket knife. I can remember, and we had like a few boxes that was given to the club. So obviously we were going to shoot it, right? And I literally had to break out cleaning rods and give each of the kids a cleaning rod or a dowel rod or something. And after they fired, they literally had to knock the case out with a cleaning rod. Simply because those that had pocket knives dug them out with pocket knives, but you get where I'm going with that. So, and then, that's an example of, they're not functioning right, but it's an ammo issue, right? More than anything. G Webs is right. I mean, the G44, when that come out, it got a lot of hate. And part of the reason where people weren't paying attention to how they were loading the magazine. And they were getting some rim overlap and rim lock and some other different weird issues like that going on. And then
But that's
there
because
are
there was not that many 22 semi-autos for one, definitely not stacked or whatever,
right.
Staggered. And then the ones that did exist were just in so limited production that people that knew about it were few. So
yeah.
And there was no internet back in the day to tell each other about it.
Yeah, no, this is true. And then, the other thing that I would say about the malfunctions and different things is 22's dirty. I mean, even if you're talking about match grade idle or 22 compared to, I can't think of anything center fire that's just freaking dirty. It's dirty. It's super dirty. And, one of the things that people seldom do, and I think that it needs to be done, is I will take some solvent and a brush, and like even on my buck marks, Rugers are super bad, the Mark series, but even with my buck marks and high standards and other things, every couple of hundred rounds, if they're out on the range and they're going to be ran for several hundred rounds, certainly we do this in a competition. But I'll break out the solvent and clean the chamber face, the bolt face, the ramp. I'll brush all of that. Because that stuff gets super dirty. And here's with semi-auto, this is something that always wear eye protection, right? And I'll tell you why is as 22, because it's inherently dirty, and you're talking about it being in a semi-automatic platform, that gunk will build up on the breech face and the bolt face. And that stuff, as that firearm is cycling, will fly back into your face and your eyes. It will happen. The dirtier it gets, the worse it gets, and then obviously you'll have a malfunction. It'll short stroke. You'll have something weird. It won't extract. You'll have something weird that'll go on because it gets dirty to some point. But one little flake of unburnt powder, gunk, whatever in your eyes enough to blind you. So be mindful of that. And with 22, like I said, I'm not saying every 200 rounds, tear it down and do a complete disassembly, clean, and put it back together. But at least brush the breech face, the bolt face, the feed ramp, that sort of thing.
I think another good thing about the newer generation of 22 handguns, 22 semi-automatics, is they made them easier to take apart. The Ruger Mark series was renowned for being a pain in the butt to take apart and get back together. So again, I'll go with what I have, the SR22, real easy for me to tear down, clean up really quick, smack it back together. I mean, it takes me longer to tell you how to do it than it takes to do it.
Yep.
And and that ease allows ease of maintenance to keep the gun clean and keep the gun running. Because like you said, if you don't keep it clean, you have particles that'll fly out. And I'm teaching kids or first-time gun users, and I don't need them to have a bad experience.
Yeah.
With it.
And it might not even fly out in your face. The most common thing I've had with it, and I've seen it on various brands of, brands, makes, and models as they get dirty, but that I've seen powder blow out, hot powder blow back onto their hands while they were shooting. And when you're talking about a kid or a first time gun owner or something, that could freak them out. I mean, for us, it's like, ow, that's done, and we know what it is, and we keep going and whatever. We got your iPro on, so
You know
cares,
it's going to end really quick, but a new person thinks they're about to, they don't have
Right.
the time.
Yeah, burst into flame. Yeah.
Right, yeah, it can freak them out. So it's like kind of like when a person, first time shooter, gets hot brass right down their shirt or something. It's like that's an experience for them. It's experience anytime it happens, quite honestly.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Surprised nobody's asked about using 22s in self-defense. Usually somebody
most
does.
of the people watching probably have heard that, or you know what I mean. But that's I think.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it comes up for sure. It's less of an issue because we got so many alternatives. I think it was more of an issue when it was like 22 straight up to 38, really, for a while there.
Well, actually, for me, I actually had my 22 as a self-defense firearm because of where I lived in Jersey. It was getting a pistol purchase permit that was taking a long time. When I came up here and decided to bring my firearms up, I could bring my firearms to the state without a firearms ID card, but I couldn't really go to a range with it. And then when I moved to Trenton, New Jersey, I wanted something to protect my household. But using the M1917 30-06 was a little bit of overkill, but that was the only firearm I had at the time. So when I picked up a 1022, because again, I just like shooting little groups, I wasn't getting it for, self-protection. I was getting it for range time and work on marksmanship fundamentals. That became my home self-defense firearm until I could get the other paperwork done and get that firearm. So what I did was made sure, one, it's the worst possible choice you can make when a bad choice. Because of smallness of the rounds, velocity of the round, the ammunition, it's not always reliable. So what I did was find the hottest ammo I could, velocitors and the Gila. I made sure to run it, and I kept the gun really clean. And that was my only, if something happens, and of course I worked on rapid fire. So if anything happens, you're catching all the BBs as quickly as possible. And hopefully that would work for my home defense firearm in a 22. But there are nothing but better options out there, including a pump action shotgun, $400. It's 12 or 20 gauge. Or any gauge. Compared to a 22 long rifle.
We're about to get that question here in a bit, so let's just do that one first because Smeggy, I think, did ask it because we asked her whatever. So Clover, feel free if you've got a point to make. My issue is usually the rim lock issue with the magazine. That rim fires tend to be more annoying, and Murphy's Law means that that's when you need it is when it'll be the most annoying. But then also the primer being rim fire. Murphy's Law is going to pick that time to that's where you got the gap in the primer fluid or whatever to where your hammer hit when you need it. And then the last thing is in magnums it can be a pain, and that's one of the flaws in the semi-auto magnum pistols. Other than that, though, in a semi-auto revolver and now this Ruger, I think it's ugly, but the Ruger LCR in 22 Magnum, that's a capable thing, a capable device. I think it's like 10 rounds or something, so it's capable. The trigger pull might be a little tough for somebody, but I think, like Tony said, there's nothing but better options. I think there's nothing but better options, I guess, just so I may have to do it. And I think you kind of touched on this, but, dexterity or injury or age or fragility, all those things, 22 Magnum starts to apply, and then even 22. everybody has a right to keep people off of them or whatever happens, right? Especially
Yeah.
critters and things, whatever. You got a
I'm
right to make some noise.
I'm not overall the fan of rimfire for it. It's just because, I mean, this is no joke. I mean, you talk 22 long rifle, and especially if you was to throw, magnums and HMRs and all of that in there. I mean, there's no doubt I've fired over 1 million rounds of 22 long rifle in my lifetime. I actually did the math the other day, just rough estimate. But and so coming from somebody that has that type of experience firing that kind of ammo in a huge variety of firearms, um, the cartridge itself is just, I don't trust it myself. Now, assuming that it goes bang and it gets out the barrel, there's no disputing that it's going to make somebody think twice. Um, but I'm just not willing to do that. Now, if I was, let me back up with willing to do that because I do have a Northern American Arms 22 Magnum. So if I was going to, it's obvious by having that I would pick a revolver because I've got less moving parts. I've got, there's more of a chance. You've got the ability on for hammer follow. You got the ability for hammer follow and weird issues like that to happen with a semi-auto. And hammer follow is where the slide comes back, the hammer disengages and basically follows the slide forward and smacks the firing pin and thus the primer, right? And so it doesn't have quite the force. And so do you end up with an issue where it's rim fire, it requires a little more, and you didn't get, it's just all these variables with that. So for me, a revolver that's got that hammer that really has no obstruction, whether it's um, shielded or not, right? Whether it's a bobbed hammer or it's an internal hammer or it's a whatever you want to call it, right? Um, it's got no obstructions and it can fall freely and smack that, I think is a little more reliable option with a revolver. So, um, I don't mind it, but I would say rimfire for self defense. But I would say a revolver to me is a better option than semi-auto. And then we eliminate. We got potential mag issues and other things with semi-auto, but yeah, revolver for me for sure.
Going back to, so that was Smeggy self-defense one. Then we can go back to another one from Smeggy, and we're going to just use last two so we don't go too far over 90 minutes here. This may be a setup question, but how many types of 22 caliber are there? How do you guys want to try to answer that one? It was the first ammo. Literally, it was this 22 short right here was the first ammo they ever made. I mean, not that particular one, but you know what I mean? It was the first cartridge. So
Yeah,
all the
22,
cartridges.
22's been around for a long time, and I won't even attempt to go into all of the 22 because I don't know it.
Yeah, same thing goes for me. There is at least a dozen that I know about, and I can't begin to name them all. But I mean, I've got a little bag with at least a dozen in it, kind of like G-Web's, you know. And we're talking about not different variants, right? We're not talking about.
Like Federal and Winchester and Hornady. We're
Yeah,
talking
no.
22 Magnum, 22B, 22 Rocket, 22 this, that, and the other
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, right. Yeah, totally different cartridge design, more or less, rather than projectile based or different chambering, so to speak. So yeah, I know there's at least a dozen in that bag, so there's a lot.
And then there's a neat part where you get into if I'm roboting, but each one of them has like a shot shell, has like a tracer, maybe has the supersonics.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not picking up. Here's that one, right, where the giant projectile in like a long case instead of a long rifle case. Like, think about that. That's how much
yeah.
powder can there possibly be in this? And it's pushing all that lead through rifling. It's like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. That's a crazy thing, considering
Well,
there's the standard one next to it. It's
Smeggy.
totally different.
Yeah, when you talk about that, right? When you talk about the difference in projectile type or weight and things like that, I go back to what I talked about before with testing that G44, and I went through 42 or 46, I don't even remember, 40 something different types, right? And that may have been 3 different types from Agula, 3 different types from Federal. They were all 22 long rifle, but types. And so that was 42, and that wasn't even not even close to what's out there. There's if you talk about all the different ammo manufacturers, and we're talking current production, because we talked earlier about the collectability of the old Colt 22 long rifle. So we're talking current production. There's dozens of flavors, let's say, out there, dozens and dozens. But if you're talking about types, I would say there's at least, I know there's at least a dozen different types. Some of them are really weird. They were like the case was the primer. A couple of these I got. So imagine taking a shotgun primer, right? And Tony, you may have seen some of these. It's almost like a shotgun primer with a pellet on top of it. And it's 22, right? But that's kind of like what it looks like. I mean, dimension-wise, it wouldn't be the same. If you glued a pellet to a shotgun primer, it wouldn't be the same. But that's sort of what it looks like. It's weird looking, and I don't remember what they called that. So that's a totally different cartridge. So he didn't say, he just said 22 caliber Smeggy did out there. So
so
I'm guessing by that he means the different, iterations and what was tried. And obviously short came along, and then long rifle, and those are that's a progression of the King, which nowadays is long rifle. But there was a lot of stuff in between, and since then.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, dude. Those gallery guns, that was shot on like crowded fairs and piers and everything.
But
and
guns are the problem, Tony. But guns are the problem. You know that.
Yeah, guns are the problem. Yeah, your great granddad gave somebody a dime and tried to win a teddy bear or something with it, shooting 22s at the fair.
I don't know that it was that much. It may not even been a dime, but yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah, I think you're right. It probably was even less, but yeah. But yeah, the guns are the problem.
Good Lord, can you imagine how much 22 you could buy for a dime back then? There's no telling how much.
Probably bought the rifle for the dime.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I bet you, from doing some of my homework, and we're talking like the early 1900s, because I'm really got a lot of firearms from that era. There was a few dollars usually on a lot of them. They were $4 or $5 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could buy a World War I surplus for 20, 30, $40.
Right. Yeah.
But hey, man, I still think, regardless of that, we're in the golden age of firearms. Regardless of the legislation they're trying to pass, we have better and more a variety of firearms available to us now than any time in this country's history.
And we've got the ability. Look at some of these CNC lathes and CNC mills for like hobbyist stuff, right? And I mean, they're out of the price range of a lot of regular people. I get it, because I mean, you're looking at, you can even buy a really nice older industrial grade mill or lathe for a few grand easily. But then you got to learn to use it, and you got to have 3-phase power a lot of times, and there's a lot of caveats. But even the newer hobbyist, smaller models that you're seeing, for a few $1,000. But you think about 3D printing. I mean, 3D printing obviously has come a long way, but we've come a long way in the actual machining capabilities of things too. It's insane, and with a 3D printer, yes, you can make and do a lot of things. But we still have some limitations, at least cost wise. I know there's 3D printing with metals and alloys and different things, but right now with I would say to a $5,000 to $8,000 investment, and maybe a couple of $100 into some education. And I say that because I can't remember the college, but there is a college, because my dad did it. And he spent like a couple $100. He's got a lathe and mill that I use pretty regularly. And I can't remember the college now. If anybody's interested, I'll try to find it out. So shoot me an email or something. But I think it was like $100 or a couple $100 and they sent him. Back then it was DVDs. You might can even access it online now. That was like you just go through these, and it basically teaches you how to use a mill and a lathe, right? Teaches you all the basics. From there, it's just practice. And on a mill and a lathe, dude, you can make anything you want to make on a mill and lathe. Period. And you can make it where it will hold up. You can make a legit firearm, not a one-shot Liberator 22 handgun. I mean, you can make a legit 30-06 on a lathe in a mill if you wanted to, and if you took the time.
Yeah. So again, we're at a place now. Technology, opportunity, it's just all lined up for us. All we have to do is fight to make sure we can keep it.
Right. Yep. True. And I guess G's having issues, unfortunately. So we'll hold down the fort till he gets back. I can't put questions on the screen, but if anybody has more questions, we're talking about 22, but this is answer gun questions, so we could answer some other stuff as well. I think it's funny out there. He's talking about he had an uncle that used a 22 long rifle for a fuse back in his 69 Ford pickup. That's
nice.
interesting. That's interesting. That's something that my grandfather, I'm sure, would do if he had to.
I've actually heard of that guys doing that. Definitely. Hilarious. Old school.
Yep.
Have you guys been hitting the questions in there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any questions. I don't know where you stopped at, and so I was looking to see. But
yep, no, I don't think this one was more of a statement. I think 22 sniper subsonic starts to tumble from a handgun. You know, that gets into more of that. It's all about the math, and 22 gives us. Well, let me put it this way, since that's kind of not really just more of a statement. Let me throw it into this. The 22. Is it, or am I wrong, the most, or at least at the top of the variabilities of like what you can do with the round? Or is it just that it's been around so long, people have done a lot of stuff with it? But, you know, there's some rounds that, you know, just don't have a lot of scope. But 22, it seems like it goes to almost every variable to some extreme.
And I'd agree. Right. I think the reason, is the age. I mean, we're talking 22 long rifle now, but like you said before, it started out as 22s, 22 short, 22 long, and 22 long rifle and 22 back. And we have, 140 years of this cartridge being out there about. So a lot of things have happened to it, been done to it, experimented with it, and came from it. I mean, because
more than that, more like 150 or 60, I think.
Okay, because
long rifle has been around since I think the late 1880s, and 22 long was I think early 1880s.
Okay.
And short was before that. What, in the 1860s?
1850 it was invented. It was the first cartridge.
Okay.
Short. They all came from
it. I got the year wrong because I guess I went with when 22 long and 22 long rifle came out. So 1850. Thanks, man.
So basically, the 22 short is just a percussion cap with a piece of shot in it. And Smith & Wesson was like, oh yeah, let's perfect that a little bit. Borrow the bored through cylinder from a guy named Hunt. And then Colt had already made a revolver, but with black powder, right? So the revolver was there. They got the Colt patent expire, I guess. So they could make a revolver. They changed it by putting a bored through cylinder, created this 22 short. That was the Smith & Wesson Model 1. And that's the beginning of all revolvers that at least use bullets, right? Everything else was black powder before that.
Right.
So just a little shout out to Smith & Wesson. That was two dudes. Dan Wesson decided to bow out pretty quick. And then it was just Smith running around for a while. Then eventually he sold the company. And since then, I mean, it started out being cool, but since then it's just been a corporation. And they do what corporations do, make money and do what they want to do, basically. So fondness for the brands and stuff, that marketing, you know, it's the same kind of, it's another layer of the industry and the community and our culture that we have to both be aware of and be protected from, because that brand loyalty and brand marketing, Ruger, I can kind of get it, because there was a Ruger dude for a while, and whether or not you love him or hate him, you know, like that was at least a family line. But like Savage, he got out of that a long time ago. They just kept the name because it was cool, I guess. And Smith & Wesson, gone a long time ago. Colt died
Colt.
before you even saw any of his stuff, really.
Well, Savage didn't Savage come up with the 22 long rifle?
No, not that I'm aware of. From my research, Savage was all about making landmines and torpedoes, and then he wanted to make a rifle to replace whatever the rifle at the time was. He made a Savage 99 rifle, sort of a, what is that called? What kind of magazine? The round magazine, like a 1022.
Rotary.
Rotary, thank you. He had a rotary magazine. He invented that, I think. But then he left. He got out of guns and took off. Everything Savage from that point on was just the company. So Savage may have, you're right, I have no idea. But the guy himself, he left guns and started racing cars, which were brand new, and invented the radial tire. So he just kept moving. Wow. He was an inventor. Like, he didn't slow down.
And Colt went away with Colt's wife. Actually, when he passed away, his son also died, and his wife took over. And then she got rid of the company and sold it, and it became a corporation after her.
That would be an actually interesting thing to talk about marketing sometime. Just plain old marketing of guns, guns questions and stuff, but a marketing thing, and just kind of what we do with AR-15s, what we're doing here, just do it on marketing.
Right. I remember Savage being somehow tied to 22 long
you might
rifle.
be right. I mean, somebody did invent the 22 long rifle.
And it may not have been invented, but somehow they were tied to it. I know somehow, some way, but who knows?
Oh, I put in long rifle and it gives me a Kentucky long rifle. Maybe put in 22 long rifle. DJ just put in here that he's checking in from Thunder on the Prairie. This was a while back, which is an event going on just south of Lincoln, Nebraska. A bunch of people in the community got together, invited a bunch of folks out to Nebraska to have a get together. He's there. I guess he was hanging out doing his thing. Where did it go? He shot Gizzards'. Where did the comments go? Did they get removed? They can't be.
Yeah, I think he removed a bunch of stuff. You can see them on the StreamYard side, I think, still.
Oh, see what happens? I got kicked out, so they don't show up on my StreamYard. So that's interesting. If you refresh your StreamYard, you lose all that stuff. So he had said something that he shot the life card, which is that little folding 22, and won some kind of 450 upper for an AR. So that's kind of cool.
Nice. One of the most expensive things you can have happen to you: win an upper for an AR.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, here's a bill. Wait, what? Did I win? Yeah, you won a bill. You got to buy the rest of it and the ammo.
Yeah, and ammo and optic and yeah.
Is there any more of these? The 22 can't legally be used for hunting. Just want a question. Centerfire ones can, but rimfire in America that's the only avenue. 22 can't. And survival, what works. Oh, that's a good point, I guess. Now that I'm thinking about it. So 22 or most rimfires are not okay for hunting unless you're talking rabbits or something smaller than that, I suppose. But there might be some exceptions for certain things, but that's a point, I guess.
I think you get into, is it optimal? Because even if you're talking rabbit or squirrel, I don't know that 22 is optimal. I know a lot of people that for rabbit and squirrel go 410 or something, right? So, even
I guess
then,
it depends if you're hunting or harvesting, maybe.
Yeah, even then,
22 is more of a skill-like thing, and if we got a rabbit, great.
And I can tell you for whitetail deer, there's been many a poacher, which this speaks to the legality, sure, but I mean that. So can it do it? Yes, but Fuzzy out there was speaking, of course, to the legalities of it, which I agree with. He's spot on with that. But could it do it? Yeah, totally. So,
that's the thing.
We get into these muddled things to where, is it optimal, and then is it legal? So that's
they make it illegal because most people don't got the skills, I guess. But I definitely know of tons of stories, at least, of capable people that used to, especially people that were just going out to get deer to eat or whatever, then they would just take a 22 out and come home with a deer because they would just sit there until they could stand next to it effectively and do what they need to do to get that deer.
I can't tell you the number of people that literally shoot pigs in the face with 22s and it works. So, and people use all kinds of 458 SOCOMs and 450 Bushmasters and 50 Beowulfs and all these big, huge things and whatever for pigs. And it's more choosing those calibers for fun, I think, than because a lot of the
Well,
old timers
you get a
around here that
margin
have.
for room. You get a room for error, a margin
You
for
do.
error. You don't
You
get
do.
anywhere near. You got to have a skill set to use 22. Otherwise, you're
Well,
basically mean to something by shooting it with a 22. You're
the
not.
the old timers I know that are they use 22s, and I've seen it multiple times over and over with big feral pigs in this area. Is they'll have dogs that'll bay them up, so they're shooting at a static target for the most part, and they're
Uh-huh.
not super far away. I mean, they're 20, 25 yards maybe, you know.
Yeah, and if they shoot out of the tree and they don't kill it right away, it's still falling out of a tree, and they can shoot it again, or it dies from falling out of the tree. So it's
Well, they've got the
very helpful.
dogs that can help protect them and keep it from coming after them or anything too. So yeah.
I mean, the level of effectiveness of each round is dissipated when you got all those factors. Yeah.
And they don't necessarily do that because they have to do it that way, because some of them wouldn't mind jumping in there on top of the pig and using a big pig sticker. I know plenty of guys that do that. Their dogs bay them up and they literally jump in there on top of him and, use their big pig sticker.
The spear, I knew people that did that, and they'd carry
Basically.
44 Magnum in case of something didn't go the way they wanted. But yeah, they just like the idea of like caveman and a pig or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
definitely. And
although it kind of is, because it's not like caveman were using dogs. They were using dogs because they threw them the legs and stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's an old way to do things.
Part of getting that rush, like the people that stick their hand in a catfish hole or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like
that's the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
But
also don't forget, what was a TV show, Swamp People, when they use 22s on the gators. It does less damage, but it takes out this thing the size of your boat. But it's about shot placement.
Yep.
That's what it's always about, though. Regardless of the caliber, it's about shot placement until you get to 50 BMG.
And being intimately familiar with the thing that you're putting that shot on, right? Like knowing, not just being able to hit the shot, but knowing where to put that so that it's effective and you're not just,
100%.
time or whatever. All right, so a bunch of people chimed in today. I appreciate that. We're trying to get it out of here in a palatable thing. We could sit here all day. This is a fun show, but I try to chop it in an hour, and then that gets us out of here in 2 hours. So my internet didn't help. I got new internet, so this should be a thing of the past. It's overnighting to me, so I imagine it'll be here Monday, and I should have a faster, better internet and not getting these chopping out. If we missed a question or two, then please throw it over to askgunquestions.com. It's a place that we've had over as a service for years. That's just easy to remember, askgunquestions.com. They just go to this database. Oh, I'm not screen sharing right now. Normally we screen share the database. It's just a bunch of questions, and when we answer them, we turn them green and come back every Saturday to address some more questions. Is there anything you guys wanted to bring up that we didn't yet today, or anything from your travels or adventures here that we want to mention before we head out?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll let you go, Tony. Go.
Oh, I'm just going to make the announcement of the way that's going on. Go to diversityshoot.com, and you can get in on the SHOT Show giveaways, $20 to our PayPal, and you get entered. And next Sunday, we're going to draw a name. And I have a huge sack. Well, I have a sack of SHOT Show swag that pretty much, I think a lot of it was only given out at SHOT. So we're doing that to help raise money for us to become a 501c3 and pay for the stuff we're doing right now. So if you want to do that, diversityshoot.com, $20 to the PayPal, and we just write SHOT Show to let me know that's what it's going to, and you're entered. So we got hats, patches, books. We got the SHOT Show magazine. In this particular one, we have Grey Ghost Precision. Was it trucker hat in black camo? So it's all that kind of stuff. So please get in on it and help fund the work we do.
All right. So again, it's going to the diversityshoot.com. Over on the right, there's that PayPal button.
Yep.
Use that.
Use the PayPal button and just $20 to us, and let us know you want to enter the SHOT Show giveaway. Just write SHOT. That's good enough.
Right on. And then you got pictures on Instagram yet?
Yep, got the video up on Instagram. That came up yesterday, and I guess I can put pictures of it up too, just to give people an idea. I'll keep posting stuff for the next week. And of course,
And
on June 9th, I have a diversity shoot coming up at Gun for Hire Range in Woodland Park.
that one broke up. You got the next diversity shoot at Gun for Hire in New Jersey. When? June 9th?
On the 9th, Wednesday the 9th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Hopefully, I'm not breaking up now. You guys hear me? Okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of grumbly, but I can say I can't tell if it's my internet or not. So I'm throwing the link out to your Instagram post, but I didn't see nothing in the thing. Did you show the patches in the video?
Yep, showed the patches. The first minute of the video is me telling you what the contest is, and then the last 25 seconds is me going through all the stuff on the table.
All right, I probably shut it off at like 13 seconds or 20 seconds or some shit. I was like, oh, he's just talking in this one. So, okay, I'll watch till the end next time. So I just threw the link to the one we're talking about in there, and then jump over to Tony's website, diversityshoot.com, and every $20 is a slot.
Yep, every $20 is a slot.
Right on. So yeah, we'll be mentioning that, and that's due the 9th. So you got some time to jump in on it, or let other people know about it so that they can get some money over to Tony to help with these diversity shoots as well. So I'll shut up because I was going to say something about the Guns for Hire and the giant. I don't know. He's been posting some Instagram shots of his free CCW classes over in Colorado, and the turnout, I'm sure, has something to do with the response to all the recent hype and the recent stress, right? And so he has a massive turnout of new people. Now he's able to be that ambassador for all these people. And it's not like he just sat there one day and said, let me do this when it's necessary. He did it a ton of times when nobody was paying attention and nobody thought it was all that interesting or necessary, so that when it is necessary, he can comfortably accommodate it and be an ambassador and be useful. And basically, I'm using that as an analogy for everything you've been doing over there. So I'm assuming these things get more popular when everybody's paying attention to guns and their culture. And
yep.
Again, thanks for creating that infrastructure so people know it's there. So you've got that alumni to recommend, people over to it. And then again, you can accommodate it, especially at a place like Gun for Hire, which is a massive indoor range, because you're all familiar with it. And actually they helped kind of get it all started, right? Or at least facilitated you starting the whole thing.
Yep, they 100% helped facilitate it, and they've supported it from the beginning. And now that they're one of the biggest indoor ranges in America, it helps. We had the rush in 2020 of new gun owners, and they're there, and they were able to take advantage of that. And now with this newest push that's coming, the same thing is going to happen as always happens. Gun control goes nuts, and people want to get involved and learn how to be safe with a firearm. So he's doing a lot of business, and it helps out with me now because, of course, he has the Gun for Hire podcast, and he's told people about me for at least the last 3 months. It's coming up on June 9th. So it's great. It's synergy. A good luck sometimes when preparation, preparation meets opportunity, and this is what's happening right now.
No, that's exactly what I said. Right on. So, Clover, you want to talk about NRA or any of the other? You got a ton of stuff scheduled up on the interviews. Did some schedule? You interviewed a couple of people this week, I guess.
Yeah, I did. I had Tony on the other night, and I'm starting to get some things scheduled out from NRAM. I mean, if you don't know, that was the trip this last weekend to NRAM, and couple of things. I haven't done any type of a debrief really or anything out of that. For those that follow me, you know that when I go to try to make the contacts and kind of set things up for all year long rather than filming at the show. That's really tiring to try to spend all day filming and cornering people and getting audio and lighting and other things where it's anywhere near decent. And then plus you've got so many other people that's the only reason they go. So yeah, things will hopefully be scheduled out moving forward. I would, since I didn't do the debrief last Wednesday, had Jenny J 1911 on the podcast, and this was her first ever, industry related show as media, as a creator. So that gave me a chance to kind of talk about my experience there a little bit, and then also have it from her perspective, which I thought was kind of neat. So check that out if you want at least something coming out of in and around. Now, I am going to jump over on Tony's Instagram here in a little bit, share his post, and I highly encourage everybody else to do so. The reason I do that is yesterday, one thing that did happen during in round last weekend was the Consult Carry Fashion Show, which I did attend, and during that, there was a presentation put on by four of the ladies from the DC project that I filmed. Not the greatest camera work or audio or anything, but it's there. And I've heard through some comments it was better than the other sources that were trying to do it. So ended up kind of happy, at least in that capacity, that I did turn the camera on and catch that. And I thought that after the fact, I kind of thought that was a good. They really gave a good representation of what that organization does and everything else. So in the spirit of sharing content, I'll ask you to go over there, check that out, and please share that. I mean, we need to get some eyes and ears and funding and other things for that project, as well as Tony's diversity shoot. Um, and thanks to those that have shared that so far. I know quite a few people did buck up and did share it. Um, Maybe that helps, and we get some of these people out there, like Tony, like the ladies of the DC project, and so many others that are, on the ground putting in a massive amount of work for us, the support and the funding that they need.
The ladies from the DC project are amazing. I mean, we all know them, but it's like the DC project is just one aspect of the Second Amendment advocacy the
Oh yeah,
ladies that are involved do. Like the DC project is one thing, and almost every lady involved in the DC project has their own 2A organization they
right,
either run or work with. So
right,
it's like a Pro Bowl of
yeah,
2A advocacy. It's like, yeah, all right, they're on the team, but then they're in the Pro Bowl too. And
yeah.
and that's what we got. We got the best of female 2A advocates, or the best of the best of 2A advocates. They just happen to be female also.
Right. And they tend to spread the message a little better than a lot of us can. Um, and I say us because sometimes I drop the ball on it as well. But I know that there's a lot of folks out there of the shall not be infringed, cold dead hands, attitude, and that's not always the best approach when you're trying to reach people in the middle. You can't treat everybody like they're the hardened anti-gunners, and most of those ladies have a really good stories and come at things from a really good angle. And so I think we benefit by supporting them, or more people can hear their stories and get them in front of more eyes, and also think we benefit maybe from learning a little bit of how they approach things.
100%. 100%. Again, I feel they're the best of the best. They come at it from an area that can't be argued, and they're really well spoken because I think these ladies have been doing this advocacy and on their own before they came to the DC project, so they're really well honed and really good at this.
So if we take the girl part out of it, because they're cheating, because they got the girl part, but if you take the girl part out, there's never been an organization of activists that I'm aware of on any position, let alone guns, but certainly not in the gun realm, where the goal was to bring an activist from each state to DC to talk to representatives in a format where they mix themselves up between gun friendly and gun unfriendly representatives, and then meet with those representatives to offer their experience, their story, and their position on the issues, but also to give them their contact information and give themselves as reference and as ears and as people to ask questions to and as mentors and counselor, all those different things, depending on what they can offer. But in real life, they meet with these representatives, and often, so that they're there longer than some of the representatives hold office, but they're going there and meeting and becoming the ear that the representatives will call on to find out, to thrash something through or whatever that's called. Like, is this to vet something? Is this legislation on point? and then they have, they've created these relationships that, again, take the girl part out of it. Nobody is doing that. That has always been, pay a lot of money and we'll send somebody to do all this, and they know how to do it. Don't question it. Just send us money and watch it happen. Oh, it didn't happen this time, but trust us, we're the only ones that can do it. Send us money, we'll send somebody in who does this. We know how to play the game. These ladies are outside the box changing the game, and the fact that they're ladies means that they're also changing the face of gun owners. So like you guys said, this is an unprecedented project. And then the way that they're doing it is, it's like just all-star. They're all bringing the best of whatever their individual groups offer, because they're either created it or they're, voices of it. And they come together, not to like the Gun Rights Policy Conference, which is sort of like, let's all look at each other. But instead they come to the same, to a get together with a goal. Like, how are we going to best use our own time and our own resources, because we're not rich or independently wealthy or whatever, and just have to leisure time. How are we going to best use our resources to do these tasks? So unlike gun rights policy, where we're coming together once a year, and unfortunately about, I'd say 80 to 90% of the people are using it as a vacation to F off and not even pay attention to what we're there for. They're just using it as a time to hang out and kind of de-stress, which is fine if it was supposed to be like that. But if we had dozens of them, it would be great to have one like that. But these ladies are getting together with a goal and ambitious, and they're changing things. Like the results of their energy and their efforts are, you can gauge them, they are measurable. So yeah, they're definitely worth learning about, shouting the word out about, and supporting individually and as a there's probably no better organization. However, what I was going to close it with, I'm gonna let you guys keep talking about it, but I just want to say, I like this, that we're giving them a shout out. What if every week now we just add to this? We're just going to give our 3 opinions on some organization, because we all know all of them pretty much. And each week we'll just randomly pick one, or let the audience pick, and we'll riff on one of the on the gun owners' rights groups like this.
I think it's a great idea to let people know about them. Something that they did last year, they started last year, was not only it's the DC project where one represents each state goes down to DC, but Diana heaped this responsibility onto the state representatives, that they put together a crew of people from different districts or counties to go to their state capital and do the same thing. So she took it from national to local level to get women to do the exact same thing in the state level as they do nationally, because as she said, it's less expensive for someone to travel within their state than it is to travel to DC. So you should be able to get more people involved, more ladies involved, and I hope it does. I know Teresa does a great job in Jersey, and but you have to get people involved. People have to know about it. So I think it's a good thing that we can talk about something every week, different organization, because locally is all politics are local. I mean, that's a great place to start.
Leaving a pause here in case anybody wants to say anything. Otherwise, I guess we'll just not keep threatening to end it. We'll just end it here. So unless I'm missing anything, you guys wanted to shout something out, I did kind of.
I'm good.
All right. Thanks everybody for showing up again. We will be back on Saturday. Clover's back next scheduled interview. Tony's back Monday podcast.
Hopefully you can record my podcast tonight. Monday I'm going to be on New England Firearms. We just set something up, so that's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on his podcast. What is
Shooting Gallery New England?
Shooting Gallery New England. That's it. Shooting Gallery New England. Sorry. I'm going to be on that Monday. I'm going to be on Firearms Radio Network Tuesday at 9 p.m. Doing that show. And that's just going. Oh, and I just finished recording Self-Defense Gun Stories with Rob Morse. The same day I was on with Clover. What was that? Thursday, Clover?
Wednesday? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be dropping tomorrow, the next episode. This is 7 years of us talking about self-defense gun stories with civilians using firearms to save themselves and their loved ones.
Wow, you've been doing that podcast with those guys for, well, is it just Rob or is it a bunch of people?
It's a bunch of people. Every week we have someone new, but we pretty much have a stable of 6 or 7 defensive firearms instructors. Yeah, 7 years of doing it.
Wow. Right on. So thanks everybody for joining in. Check out that stuff, and we'll be back to pick you up later.
AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007. And since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.